Investigators were able to remove a computer chip from LETECIA's Volkswagen, which was examined by the FBI. The FBI was able to recover data, hereinafter raw data, which included, but is not limited to, the estimated location of the vehicle, specifically related to the evening of January 28th, 2020 and the morning of January 29th. The raw data has not been scientifically evaluated, and the raw data that was provided was not portrayed to be an exact representation of the vehicle's activities. Additionally, I have been told that the raw data has particular limitations, including the inability to show the exact location of the vehicle. For example, if the Tegan was taken off-road, the raw data may not show that and display the estimated location on the nearest road. Furthermore, the estimated location may have some degree of fluctuation in accuracy, estimated to be approximately 50 to 100 meters. FBI agents, including Special Agent Donati, took steps to verify and corroborate the data recovered from the Tegan. In summary, Donati was able to take some of the raw data, including location and timestamp, and compare it to other evidence. As with other forensic evidence discussed in this affidavit, investigators believe it to be reliable. For example, the Tegan raw data placed it leaving the Colorado Springs airport just after 1900 hours on January 28th. This information matched the timestamp of the January 28th Colorado Springs airport parking receipt for the Tegan data. The Tegan raw data indicated that it stopped near a King Soopers parking lot for approximately 10 minutes after leaving the airport between 20:08 hours to 20:18 hours. Donati was able to review video surveillance footage from that King Soopers, which indeed shows a dark SUV matching the description of the Tegan, sitting in the parking lot during that same time period. Other footage, including video footage from a Wendy's restaurant in a separate location, helped to further corroborate the raw data. Of significant importance, the raw data shows the Tegan in the area of Highway 105 South Perry Park Road between 21:15 hours and 21:30 hours on January 28th, and I have included a map depicting that data. The raw data also indicated that Tegan stopped for approximately 5 minutes in an area proximate to the recovery of Gannon's blood on February 15th. This is the same area LETECIA likely drove to in her Nissan Altima rental vehicle on January 31st. The recovery of Gannon's blood in this area is discussed below. Investigators were also able to compare LETECIA's historical cell site information, including NELOS data, against the Tegan raw data, and found no reason to believe that LETECIA was not the driver of the Tegan on January 28, 2020. Investigators conducted several consensually monitored telephone calls with Mr. STAUCH. Specifically, Mr. STAUCH, at the direction of law enforcement, communicated with LETECIA via telephone and email. These communications have been recorded and memorialized and consisted of hours of recorded conversation. I will not provide a transcription of these calls, but will summarize the importance of particular changes in LETECIA's story, and will also include exculpatory information related to LETECIA's statements. LETECIA never admitted to killing Gannon. For the purpose of refreshing the court, here is a summary of some of LETECIA's statements, whether to law enforcement, directly through the media and or to Mr. STAUCH, in recorded email and voice communications. On January 27th, LETECIA stated, Gannon left to play at a friend's house and did not come home at 1800 hours like he was supposed to. On January 29th, LETECIA stated she was being held at gunpoint, raped, and Gannon was abducted by her rapist. Within LETECIA's falsehoods, there are details corroborated by physical evidence that would be near impossible to know without being intimately involved in the murder. LETECIA has made statements to explain blood on the walls in Gannon's bedroom, blood on the rear bumper of the Tegan, and blood in the garage of the STAUCH residence. Details of the location of blood evidence has not been released to the media nor to LETECIA and has been closely held throughout this investigation. Furthermore, LETECIA has continued to provide alibis for her physical locations not previously disclosed to investigators. Her statements continue to evolve in a dramatic way, and all are remarkably different from the original report to EPSO. The majority of the conversations between LETECIA and Al STAUCH began around February 13th, 2020. Over several days, LETECIA's story continued to change. During a phone call on February 13th, LETECIA stated that Gannon was burned by a candle to the point that his skin bubbled, and that Gannon peeled the burns off and wiped blood on his bedroom wall. Mr. STAUCH did not ask about blood on the walls of his room during this call. The fact she provided information about blood on the wall likely indicates her knowledge of the murder scene. On February 14th, LETECIA had an additional conversation with Mr. STAUCH and provided 4 additional versions of Gannon's disappearance. Story 1. When EPSO came to the house on January 27th, the abductor was still in her residence and that she tried to signal to EPSO deputies that there was somebody in the residence. It should be noted that EPSO deputies checked the entirety of the house and no additional person was located during that search. Story 2. She was raped by Quincy Brown at her residence and Brown abducted Gannon. She knew Brown's identity because she saw a paper and his identification card fall out of his pocket that had his name on it. LETECIA sent a photograph of Quincy Brown to Mr. STAUCH via text message. It is noted this photograph mirrored images online wherein Quincy Brown was listed as a most wanted suspect, discussed below. Story 3. Quincy Brown followed her from Petco and at some point was laying in the middle of the road in front of her car. When LETECIA stopped to avoid running the man over, he jumped into her car and made her take him home, then raped her. Story 4. LETECIA and Gannon were near Country Line Road, Highway 105 in northern El Paso County on January 27th. Gannon was riding a bicycle in that area and fell off, hit his head, and was then abducted by Quincy Brown. In this version of events, Quincy Brown was driven by a man named Terrence. The February 14 story number 4 has several interesting considerations. During the period of February 12th to 14th, it was public knowledge by virtue of media coverage that investigators were searching for Gannon in the area of Highway 105, South Perry Park Road in southern Douglas County, near the El Paso County line. LETECIA brought this location up on her own without prompt during a conversation and provided an alibi for why she was in that area. LETECIA was adamant that the investigators' efforts to search for Gannon in that area would be futile. This area turned out to be significant based on the Tegan's location on January 28th and that Gannon's blood was found in this area, discussed below in more detail. Furthermore, as mentioned above, LETECIA drove through this same area in her Nissan Altima rental vehicle on January 31st. I submit that based on raw data received from the Tegan, LETECIA was likely in the area of Highway 105 South Perry Park Road on the evening of January 28th, and Gannon's remains were dumped in the vicinity of that area. LETECIA's story lays the foundation for a reason why investigators may locate Gannon's body with head trauma. On February 15th, LETECIA provided additional conflicting stories to Mr. STAUCH, including that the story she told Albert STAUCH about Gannon falling off the bike was a lie because it was what she believed he wanted to hear. LETECIA stated the blood in the corner of Gannon's room was a combination of hers and Gannon's. In this explanation, she stated that the abductor anally penetrated both her and Gannon with an object. Additionally, she was tied up at some point in the abduction, and the abductor was still present during the EPSO visit that night. Quincy Brown, aged 37, was listed on El Paso County's Most Wanted list on February 10, 2020. I was able to locate Brown's photo on KKTV News website, where they describe Brown as a black male. It is noted that during one of LETECIA's stories, she described her rapist as a Hispanic male. The photo on this website appeared to be the same photo LETECIA sent to Mr. STAUCH. Brown has outstanding arrest warrants for failure to register as a sex offender and failure to appear. These warrants appear to have been open since 2018. I was able to find a criminal history for Quincy Brown, date of birth 10/21/81, which included but was not limited to a 2001 arrest for first-degree kidnapping in El Paso County Court, which was pled to felony menacing. Investigators have uncovered no evidence to support that Quincy Brown was involved in Gannon's disappearance. As mentioned above, investigators began to focus a search effort for Gannon's remains in the area of Highway 105 South Perry Park Road in Douglas County, Colorado on February 12th. There is not an exact address to reference due to the rural nature of the area. This particular location was deemed important based on raw data from the Tegan on January 28th and the location data from her rental vehicle on January 31st. On February 15th, searchers located a piece of particle board during that search. The particle board had a stain that appeared to be consistent with blood and is pictured below. The particle board was collected by the FBI Evidence Response Team and transported to the Metro Crime Lab, also on February 15th. An initial test revealed a positive presumptive result for the presence of human or high primate blood. Further testing was conducted and a DNA profile was developed and compared to Gannon's on February 16th. That profile matched the DNA profile of Gannon STAUCH and is documented in Metro Crime Laboratory report. The reasonable explanation for the discovery of this particle board with Gannon's blood on it is that LETECIA used this particle board during the disposal of Gannon's remains. The area in which the particle board was found is rural, and the ground was covered by approximately 6 to 12 inches of snow. Additionally, as the area is rural in nature, it is likely populated by wildlife, including predators such as bear, coyotes, and mountain lions. Gannon's remains have not been located, and while investigators will continue to search the area, it is possible these remains have since been scattered since January 28th. The below map depicts the area where the particle board was recovered, compared with raw data from the Tegan's location while idling for approximately 5 minutes on January 28th, and the GPS tracker data from the Nissan Altima on January 31st. As noted above, the raw data of the Tegan has an estimated 50 to 100 metre variance.